Black Earth offers a full suite of humic solutions, from high-purity granules to powder, liquid, and soluble formulations, all powered by pure humulite. Trusted by growers worldwide from one of the world's rarest humulite reserves. Grow stronger with the power of Black Earth humulite. Learn more from Mind to Market by visiting blackearth.com.
I'm Sean Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now. Welcome to RealAg on the Weekend. I'm your host, Sean Haney of RealAgriculture.com. Hopefully you had yourself a great week. Happy belated Canada Day to everybody out there that is listening on the radio waves, and hopefully you had a chance to maybe do some camping, maybe do probably a little catch up around the farm and around the ranch. It's kind of a bit of a mixed affair, but definitely great weather for a great bulk of Canada when it came to Canada Day. Pretty awesome stuff, and hope you got a chance to get some fireworks in, maybe go down to the local fairgrounds, whatever you did. I know the Western Canadian Baseball League, for example, they had some great attendance over Canada Day weekend. I think they broke a record. Over 40,000 people went from across Alberta and Saskatchewan, went to a Western Canadian Baseball League game. So that's pretty cool as well. Well, not just Canada Day, but we got some crops growing as well. Need Mother Nature to start to cooperate a little bit better. We're going to get into that here in a second. Today, we're also we're going to talk about crops, but we're also going to talk about the cattle markets. Oh, wow. Yeah, listen. Demand has been strong. Prices have been even stronger. We're going to get the full breakdown from Wasko, the Gateway Livestock Exchange, in this week's beef market update. We're also going to hear from Alberta farmer Shane Strydhorst talking about some issues around pulse nodulation. And then we're going to finish up. Calgary Stampede is away and running. And we're going to talk about what's your favorite rodeo event. I've got a couple of my favorites. And it's an opportunity for you to provide some feedback, and let's have some fun. And you start to talk about yours as well. So we'll get to that here today. Now, if you have any feedback on today's show, we'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. And don't miss out on all the e-newsletters that Real Agriculture sends out on a daily basis, keeping you updated on all things happening in the world of agriculture, agronomy, machinery, cattle, dairy. We have it for you. Absolutely. Even some farm management stuff. All you got to do is go to realagriculture.com/subscribe. That's realagriculture.com/subscribe. And that number, like I said, 855-776-6147. What is your favorite rodeo event? Okay, so let's get to a bit of a crop update. Now, listen, I call it the weather lottery. And we again have this. We're not getting these like wide storms that impact, miles and miles of crop acres. We're getting these spottiness, and we're seeing again where one area is good, one area is not, and they could be relatively close together. So it is a bit of a patching of who is getting rain and who is not. And we're into July, so the temperature's being turned up. So if you're short of moisture, you really need rain now. Like, we're running out of time. If you're in an area that maybe has a little bit of a subsoil amount, you can kind of get by. And I don't want to mention areas because it is quite spotty, and I'll probably get corrected because of that spottiness. But earlier this week, I chatted with Pioneer Sales Rep Colleen Redlick, or Pioneer Sales Agronomist, I should say, who is in the northern part of Saskatchewan. Here's what she said about conditions in that area.
Yeah, we were really I'm quite glad that you didn't want to talk to me until now, because if I'd gotten your note 2 weeks ago asking for, to come on today, I'd be like, no, it's just dry and depressing and people are really sad. And it's really hard to go on and talk and be, positive about your brands and canola when everybody's kind of sad and it's dry. So that was definitely the start we had was, guys that had no moisture from the time snow melted and, seeded their canola into moisture. And then we had 3 days of 80K wind and things dried out. So lots of concern early about, emergence and, people saying, what's wrong with my canola? Or did I do something wrong seeding? And you go out and look and it's just sitting in dry dirt, right? So for me, like, I'm originally from Bigger. That's just like every year. So I wasn't too concerned. I was like, guys, the rain will come and things will get going. But definitely it was a dry start to the year. So we've gotten some rain in kind of last 2 weeks, 10 days. Things are starting to look really good. And I've actually been having some fungicide conversations in the last couple of days, if that kind of gives you an indication of how the canola's turning.
That was Colleen Redlick from northeastern Saskatchewan with Pioneer Seeds Canada. I also had a chance to talk to Pat Kunz, who farms in the Bicycle, Alberta region. Here's what he had to say about crop conditions in his area.
Hurting. This last rain really helped, but it just depends where the stage was at. My wheat was in the boot and probably missed some development there while it was dry since mid-May or so. But then some of the later stuff actually, like my soft white was a little bit later and it was still well in the boot. It's just heading out now, so it's looking a little bit better.
Yeah, and the temperature's definitely turned up, so those timely rains need to hurry up.
Yeah, if we keep getting, or I shouldn't say keep getting, if we do get some timely rains here, then, there's a chance. Things are looking pretty thin, I guess, kind of thin and short is what it looks like here. I wouldn't say anything's written off or anything like that. Certainly there's probably drier areas, but we definitely could use more always, I guess.
That was Pat Kunz from Bicycle, Alberta. Also this week I talked to farmer up by Brandon, Manitoba, and Aaron Hargraves. And wasn't great there either. Actually, Brandon's quite dry. So, but there are parts where, I've heard from people, hey, we're doing okay. Like I talked to a farmer earlier this week in the Peace River region. We were texting, and, he said, compared to where we were 3 weeks ago, we're looking a lot better. Like I said, weather, lottery. That's the best way to look at it. Some people win, some people lose. Mother Nature is not socialist. She is not treating everybody the same. Very capitalist. It's just a question of why she chooses some of these areas and not others. It just feels like for some of these areas, and I'm in one of them in Lethbridge, Alberta, it just feels like this dry bias. This is where we have been for quite some time. We are teased with some periods of like, okay, looking better. Maybe this is turning around. And then we're just, we're smacked back to reality. It seems over the longer term, but hey, it's not over yet. We're just the beginning of July. This is where the temperature really does start to pump up though. And we are seeing some warmer temperatures. So this is where we need now. We're not afforded some chillier weather, which buys us some time. Now it's using any sort of moisture that it has. So Mother Nature's got to deliver for us indeed for sure. I do want to mention that last week we talked a lot about President Trump calling off those trade negotiations. Remember that? And kind of like what we talked about here. It's just a piece of negotiating because Canada gave up the digital services tax and now we're back to negotiating again. So I think we kind of called that one last week on the show. And they're using July 21st now as their date to complete this agreement. Whatever it looks like and whatever it entails, we'll have to see. Stay tuned for that. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more of RealAg on the Weekend right after this. Don't miss out on any of the content that RealAgriculture.com publishes. Whether you're looking for agronomy, current events, or industry news, our daily newsletters bring you the most current information every morning. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by Mazik Seeds and Lalamon Plant Care.
If you're serious about agriculture, RealAg's got you covered.
For over 10 years, we've listened to and shared what producers have to say about everything from policy to agronomy from coast to coast.
Keep up with the latest in Canadian agriculture at RealAgriculture.com through daily newsletters and check out our YouTube channel.
Thanks for joining us in the RealAg community as we continue to cover and serve North American agriculture.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
You may hear a lot of concerns about profitability in the farming sector. One of the areas that is a bright spot, no doubt about it, it really has been a good time, and that is the cattle sector. Yes, and you see at the grocery store, you know that you've probably talked around the water cooler or maybe that campfire about, look at those beef prices. They have been strong, and producers are finding some ways to make some money. Ranching sector and cattle feeding have been a healthy place. It is one of the bright spots for sure. Every 2 weeks, I talk to Ann Wasko, the Gateway Livestock Exchange, about what's going on in the cattle markets. Here's this week's discussion.
Well, I mean, first of all, you're right. This was a holiday in both countries. We had our Canada Day back on Tuesday, and of course, tomorrow will be the U.S. holiday. So smaller kills, certainly. But the market has moved off of the highs from about a month ago, and this week was kind of, depending on where you're at. For example, in the south in Kansas, the market was $1 to $2 lower this week. $2.22 to $2.24 was their live trade. And Nebraska kind of held together pretty steady with last week, $2.30 to $2.32 on the live and $3.68 to $3.70 delivered. So that was pretty steady, but again, off about $10 live off of where the highs would have been a month ago. The other news, and you talked a little bit about it on your show yesterday, Sean, I think, but of course, in terms of USDA making an announcement of the U.S.-Mexico border reopening over the screwworm issue. And it's going to be very much a very slow, phased-in reopening, one border crossing next week, another one the following week. So it's going to take some time between now and September to open those border points. And again, I think like we've seen through the first half of this year, it'll very much depend on how things are going along and what they find. So markets reacted a bit on announcement day, but then have really, futures have kind of bounced back after that. And it was more the psychology of the news than actual supply.
Yeah, well, and you can see this feeder cattle supply out of Mexico is critical. It's really important for the U.S. cattle feeder, and they're trying to do what they can to get that flow restarted. But we've seen them say, hey, we're going to sort of a trickle opening. There could be a trickle close. And so it's hard to read and sort of, don't try to outguess this, I guess maybe is a way to look at it, because who knows where we go from here. Hopefully they're able to keep this under control and keep it out of the U.S.
Exactly. And just on the number side, here in the first half of 25, there's been just a few over 200,000 head come, whereas, in the entire year last year, it was closer to 1.2 million heads. So that's how much, it's a fraction of where we would normally be at this time.
So I just have a question. I don't know why I'm putting up my hand, but those cattle that have not come into the U.S., any word, are they just being fed out in Mexico somehow? Or are they what are they doing?
That's what I understand, Sean, is that certainly there's a portion of those will be moved into U.S. Or into Mexican feedlots and finished along that way. And some of them may be just in backgrounding, holding type to see what happens with this border. So I think it probably is a little bit of everything that we've talked about.
Yep.
So that was kind of the news I wanted to talk about in terms of the U.S., but bring it back to local markets. We've actually seen the Alberta fat cattle market hold on considerably better than that U.S. market that's kind of $10 off the high. Alberta markets are only $1 or $2 off the high. So because of our holiday on Tuesday, we're kind of still waiting for trade. Feedlots are asking for 505 delivered. Last week it was 503. So that's kind of where we're at. We might only be steady money, but just so you kind of got an idea that the market is holding in there. that would put an average right around $3 for people that are looking for that live conversion.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Big numbers kind of just roll off your tongue now.
Yeah.
Because we haven't talked for a wee bit, I just wanted to update our listeners on how the on-feed numbers looked in June, because we weren't able to talk about this. So both countries, we're seeing smaller on-feed numbers. In Western Canada, the last report was slightly under last year, 7% smaller than the 5-year average. So that's the kind of trend we've been looking at. In the U.S., their June 1 report was 1% smaller from last year, 2% smaller than the 5-year average. Placements were down 8%, and again, largely due to this Mexican feeder import issue, especially into those southern feedlots, as you mentioned. So we'll see, what goes on, but this has been a trend we've seen all year long. The other piece that we talked about quite a bit leading into my last report here was how many, in Western Canada, how many forward sales of calves for fall delivery we've been seeing. So CanFacts put together a bit of a summary in terms of all of the calves sold in June for October and November delivery. And this is, I'll just give you some rough numbers, but a 550 weight steer for delivery this fall, averaging right around 590, and the matching heifer around 520. So those numbers are certainly higher than what the spot market is. So certainly optimistic in terms of the fall run and pricing through this fall is what we've seen. The other thing I thought was timely, because we're finished first half of 25, and these markets, these prices have been out of this world amazing. Just quickly where we're at. So fed cattle in Alberta averaging for the first 6 months of this year, 283. That's 17% higher than last year. And just to comparison, keeping in step with the US averaged 214 US, that's 16% higher. So it was good to see both markets are moving together. That's over a 6-month average, but still. Calf prices are 550 weight average, 532 in the first half of this year, up 27%. Feeders averaging 393 at 850 pounds, that's 22% higher. And slaughter cows take the record in terms of percentage increase. They averaged 209 in the first half of this year. That's 28% higher than the first half of last year. So amazing numbers. It'll be interesting to see what the second half brings. We've set the sights quite high in terms of where we've been trading here in the first half of the year, but demand remains strong. Boxed beef prices continue to be strong. That's going to ease off seasonally now as we head into as you opened the segment, the dog days of summer.
Yeah.
But it's been a great run.
Yeah, it's definitely grilling season now. It's definitely in full effect from kind of between now and Labor Day. Would that be sort of that? This is kind of the zone for max grilling, right?
It is. Although in terms of retail featuring and whatnot, I think things do slow off after the July 4th holiday. As you get into that heat, turns into a little bit more of a hamburger, hot dog kind of market per se as you get into the heat of the summer. So those big, the Memorial Day and the Father's Day and the July 4th, those are the biggies. And things do tend to slow down a little bit as we go into the heat of summer.
Yeah, I'm not going to, the hot dog thing, I'm not judging. Like
I had to spit it out.
A nice summer day, a hot dog, and the mustard is key. Now, everyone's not going to agree with that. And
I have some friends that will already be arguing with me once they hear this segment. But anyway.
Yeah. Hey, it takes all kinds of cuts. They can't all be about ribeyes and T-bones, all you cowboys and cowgirls out there. So that's we gotta have respect for the hot dog as well. That was my discussion with Ann Wasko of the Gateway Livestock Exchange. Love me a hot dog. Stampede time is on. Hot dogs are good. Fully loaded. Mustard, relish, pickles, sauerkraut indeed. Back with more of RealAg on the weekend right after this. Want to stay on the leading edge of farm management? RealAgriculture.com features the Mind Your Farm Business podcast brought to you by RBC Royal Bank. Find it at mindyourfarmbusiness.com or wherever you get your podcasts. RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomist Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday, we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire, and we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lindsay Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern, and don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada. On RealAgriculture.com, we do a lot of agronomic content. If you're growing crops, we have content for you. We got a corn school, soybean school, wheat school, canola school, wheat school, pulse school, even a soil school, and great free online resources for you on demand. Now, one of the series, like I mentioned, is the Pulse School, is brought to you by BSF Canada. Do appreciate their strong support for the Pulse Acre and providing agronomic content. They allow it to happen and make sure that it's free to you, the farmer. On a recent episode, Amber Bell of Real Agriculture had a conversation with Shane Strydhorst, who's a farmer in central Alberta, talking about nodulation. Here it is.
Okay, so let's dive right into it. What are growers looking for? Should they be out checking for nodules, and what does that look like?
So this crop behind us, you can see the color is really rich, dark green. It's very healthy, definitely fixing its own nitrogen. What we'd probably want to be looking for is a paler color, and much earlier in the growing season, probably that 2 to 4 leaf stage where we wouldn't have applied our herbicide yet. So if there was any pale color, it would be because the plants are suffering from a stress other than what herbicide would cause.
Right. Would you recommend checking for nodules even if you're not seeing that pale color? Is it just good practice?
It's a good practice just to make sure that things are going right, and particularly if you remember having a mess up at seeding time, things can happen, can forget to inoculate. There could be some interaction between the seed treatment and your inoculant. Perhaps you applied inoculant and got rained out or had a breakdown or out of the field for a couple of days. That inoculant doesn't live very long if it's not either kept cool in the bag or in the soil with the seed. So those are all things to keep in mind if you think you might have a problem.
So when talking about lessons learned, have there been any other things that you've heard of, things that growers listening might be able to take advantage of learning from other people's mistakes in this or your own?
You definitely want to check labels of your inoculant and your seed treatments to make sure that there's not going to be any interference from the seed treatment against your inoculant. There can be issues there. And I've also heard of people making the unfortunate mistake of guessing that their inoculant was part of the seed treatment and not adding inoculant to the tank, and that's a very costly mistake to make. And I mean, you can see some fixation and some nodulation without application of inoculant at seeding, but it's generally not going to be as good. There is some rhizobia in the soil just naturally that will attach to the roots, but you'll have to check to make sure that you've got a nice pink or reddish colored nodules to know that you're fixing. Otherwise it's just part of the roots and not really doing you any good. And if you're a frequent pulse grower, like this particular field has probably had 6 or 7 pulse crops in the last 15 or 20 years, and there will be some background rhizobia in the soil, but I would always recommend to any grower just put the inoculant on or in the tank, and then you're guaranteed to have success.
Right. If you do have a problem, what are you looking at on your sort of return on investment for that later on in the season? What's going to be the impact of a lack of nodulation?
So if you don't have good nodulation, you're basically growing a faba bean crop or any pulse crop the same as you would canola or wheat or barley without giving it nitrogen. So at that point, if you don't have nodulation, you'd be looking at a rescue application of nitrogen to get that crop through. And because pulses fix so much nitrogen, you're looking at a lot of nitrogen added.
And Shane, what have been some of your experiences with a lack of nodulation, or have you had any where you're like, man, I'm really glad I caught that in time?
So we had it once where we got into the field, it was too wet, and we'd use the liquid formulation of inoculant, which you have to apply onto the seed as you're loading into the cart, in our case. And we had to pull out of the field and wait for a couple of days, and it was a painful process of unloading that seed, getting more inoculant and reloading it and recoating it so that we had fresh inoculant that we knew was going to be working for us. And we've also had experience where we maybe had some air balancing issues on the air cart and didn't have proper application of the granular inoculant, which is my preference now, is to use granular and just use the canola roller on the cart. But that can happen too, and yeah, definitely something you want to keep an eye on and correct if you can.
So there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Is there any damage that can be caused by pests for nodulation? Is that something producers should be looking for?
Yeah, there's definitely a pest, pea leaf weevil. I mean, don't let the name fool you. They love faba beans, and the characteristic notching in the leaves is the first sign that you have them. But the real damage that they do is below ground, which you can't see. They actually eat the nodules right off the roots, and if they do that, then it's just like as if you didn't apply inoculant, and your crop is not going to be fixing its own nitrogen. So in my particular preference is to buy some insurance and put some insecticide on as part of the seed treatment program to help defend against those.
If a grower has gotten to the point in the season where there is that lack of nodulation, they know that there's been some damage done maybe by pea leaf weevil or an incident during seeding, is there something they can do about it at this point?
Yeah, so obviously in a case like this, you would not want to be driving in this crop other than with the sprayer to apply a fungicide. But if you were finding an issue earlier in the growing season, like I said, 2 to 4 leaf stage, you'd probably be looking at a rescue application of nitrogen, which would mean a floater or maybe a banding, dribble banding. And so you'd want to be you'd be applying a lot of nitrogen. If you do a little bit, it's not really going to help because it'll just make the crop lazy and it'll use the nitrogen you applied before it even tries to fix any, if there is any ability. So, you know, some really quick math on a 50 bushel faba bean crop, a person could be looking at over 140 pounds of nitrogen just exported in the seed of that crop. So depending what your background levels are in the soil, you'd be applying quite a bit of nitrogen. If you had the yield potential on that year with the growing conditions, you'd be applying a lot to get a good crop out of it at that point.
Wow. And at what stage of the plant growth does it actually start fixing its own nitrogen and you no longer have to worry about that nodulation issue?
Fairly early on. I mean, even at that early stage, you will see some nodules, and I mean, not just 1 or 2, but, you know, several on each plant. And by this stage, they'll have dozens or hundreds of nodules on. And yeah, based on the growth and the color of this crop, we know that it's fixing a lot of nitrogen at this point.
Okay, and let's go into the actual how to check for nodules. What does that actually look like in the field?
So as painful as it sounds, it means we have to actually go up and dig up a healthy plant and clean the soil off the roots, wash the roots, and then once we've kind of got them nice and clean, then we take a knife or a fingernail and break open the nodules and kind of see what color they look like inside.
Right, and do you want to take from different areas of the field if you have some modulation in the ground?
Ideally, you'd want to check in a few locations, just like any crop scouting. If you're looking for disease or weed issues, you'd certainly want to check a few areas.
So Shane, is there anywhere that growers can go to find out more information about nodulation, checking for nodules, that type of thing?
Yeah, the Alberta Pulse Growers website has some great resources, some videos, some good information. And on the Alberta Pulse Growers app, there's an Ask an Expert section where you can get answers if you have questions about something you're observing in your field. And yeah, there's lots of great resources to be found there.
That was Amber Bell talking to Alberta farmer Shane Strydhorst. Good agronomic information there for sure. That's from our Pulse School. You can find more episodes of the Pulse School by going to the Real Agriculture YouTube channel. Or, of course, you can go to pulseschool.com. And yeah, like I said, great agronomic resources there for everybody to grab onto, to use when you need it. That's the key. On-demand stuff for you. And I bet you Real Agriculture, I'll put up our library, our vault, our archive agronomic content. I'll put it up against anybody. We have more agronomic resources online free for you than any other ag media company in North America. Hands down. I'm confident in telling you that. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's the best rodeo event right after this. Don't miss out on any of the content that RealAgriculture.com publishes. Whether you're looking for agronomy, current events, or industry news, our daily newsletters bring you the most current information every morning. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is a video series that showcases the latest in canola research and production agronomy. Learn from some of the best at your own pace through quick and timely producer-focused videos available on our YouTube channel. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is the quickest way to keep up to date on all the latest in canola production. Boost your canola IQ with the Canola School, brought to you by BASF, and visit canolaschool.com.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomist, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Well, the Calgary Stampede is off and running. It's, City of Calgary just gets taken over. And some of you are probably like, oh, Stampede. Some of you are like, yeehaw, Stampede. Well, get out your pocketbook. It's not a cheap time to be in the city. I got to be in Calgary on Wednesday, and I'm way in the south end. And what I'm paying a night for that hotel, yikes. But it is a great time. I'm actually going to be hosting the International Livestock Congress on Wednesday down at the BMO Center, and the big ag reception that happens that night at the BMO Center as well. If you've never been to that new BMO Center building, it is spectacular. So looking forward to being down on the grounds on Wednesday. Now, with the Calgary Stampede, of course, comes rides and crazy food and, like I said, expensive hotels. What also comes is the rodeo. And I still think this is one of the highlights. If I'm going down to the grounds, it's, I think a big pull is to go to that rodeo in the afternoon. Great time. One of my greatest rodeo memories was local Marty Broderson from Vauxhall, Alberta. He won the bull riding. I remember being there and knew his family quite well, the Brodersons. And I remember when he won the bull riding at the Calgary Stampede. It was pretty cool. But bull riding is just one of the events that gets the crowds all fired up and charged and ready to go. I'm very curious, what is your favorite rodeo event? I think for some people they're going to say, well, because the finale is the bull riding. So clearly that shows us that a lot of people are just showing up. They're going there because that's the pull. They want to see the bulls. But I'll be honest, there's times where it can be really anticlimactic, especially when the bulls are really winning, right? When you just see a bunch of guys try to ride, they all last about 2, 3, maybe like 1.5 seconds. It could be kind of boring. And we've all seen that at some of the rodeos where the cowboys all lose. But bull riding will always have that there's the professional bull riding tour, for goodness sakes, right? It's a whole tour centered around one event. And big respect for those rodeo clowns. So I think bull riding's got to be near the top. We got saddle bronc riding and bareback riding. Now, both different, but I've heard that people think that one of the hardest on your body is the bull riding. I've heard, maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I've heard that bareback riding is actually the most physically hard on those cowboys because of that constant wrapping your upper back against the back of that horse. There's no cushion, rock hard, and just banging your body. So I've heard that is one of the toughest on the physical side for those cowboys. So there's kind of the rough stock events. Then we've got the timed events. So we got calf roping, steer wrestling, team roping, and barrel racing. Now, I'm going to say of those four, but I want a bit of a sneak peek here. My favorite rodeo event, I think, is steer wrestling. I love bulldogging. I think it's just one of the coolest. It's a timed event. It's also a show of some strength, and there's technique, of course, to it. I think bulldogging. Steer wrestling is really one of those events that I think it's understated. Next on that one, I think is barrel racing. Barrel racing is exciting, and it's sort of like, do you ever watch these events? Like, we watch rodeo. Maybe you watch once a year at the Stampede, or maybe you do watch a little bit of it on TV, or maybe you're at the Pinocchio Rodeo this past weekend. And you become like an expert. Ooh, took that corner too wide. Like you're sort of like become that rodeo analyst. Oh, yes, absolutely. We all do that for sure. So like we watch curling on TV. So I think barrel racing is another one that is pretty darn awesome. The speed and you're cutting those corners and you're just holding on for your life. At least it looks like. But those cowgirls are definitely in control. Team roping's pretty cool, and of course calf roping pretty neat as well. They call it tie down roping now, but can always be calf roping to me. Then, of course, we have things like mutton busting for the kids. That's always a crowd favorite. People love that one. People love that. That's a good one for the kids. So there's the wild cow milking, which I don't know if they do that at the Stampede anymore, but so much fun. And I also heard that, oh man, I should have looked this up before we did the broadcast. One of the best events is the Indian relay race. Wild. And if you've never seen it, I encourage you to check it out. So I don't know if it's a part of the rodeo or if it's part of the grandstand show now, but I think it is one of the most exciting things to see down at the grounds is the Indian relay race. It is so cool. It is speed. It is like just courage, having no fear whatsoever. Watching them rip around on those crazy fast horses. It is so much fun. And you get to see some of the costumes and the garb and the traditional stuff. It is pretty neat. So lots of opportunities to have fun down at the rodeo. But we'd like to hear from you. What is your favorite rodeo event? Mine are steer wrestling. I'm going to say barrel racing and the Indian relay race. Those are my three. What are yours? You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, or, of course, call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. And if you are down at the grounds, have fun, stay safe. It looks like it could be a little hot. It looks like it could be hot down there, there's also the crazy food, like crazy food. And it's become kind of a thing. And so now, like, everybody tries to outdo each other. It's like sort of like Caesars, where you get like a cheeseburger at the top of your drink. We've sort of jumped the shark maybe a little bit on that, but definitely an opportunity to consume some calories. If you are watching your caloric intake, Stampede, not for you whatsoever. Yeah. I really enjoy the ag reception that we do on Wednesday nights, because it really gives an opportunity for the industry to come together. It's this big reception. Usually the federal ag minister's there. Usually the provincial ag minister is there. Dignitaries from across Canadian agriculture. Really the who's who. It's just a celebration sponsored by McDonald's. And so the Canadian McDonald's CEO always provides a talk and talking about some of the things that they're doing in agriculture. It's really a fun event, and they have a really good reception, and the food, there's McDonald's ice cream there and cookies and muffins. Just it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I've been able to MC that event for a number of years now, and I always appreciate them asking me to come back, and it's a lot of fun. It's hard to get hundreds and hundreds of people quieted down that haven't seen each other in a while. The whole industry coming together, trying to get that crowd to settle and simmer and let's just have a bit of a 25-minute program here, everybody. It is difficult indeed. Okay, now, like I said, favorite rodeo event, I want to hear about it. Haney@realagriculture.com. You could also share maybe your wildest Stampede story. That would be very interesting. I'm not sure we could repeat all those here on the air, but the ones where maybe they're rated G, we potentially could. So I encourage you to send me your feedback. Look forward to hearing with you or from you. And make sure you go to RealAgriculture.com to keep up to date on all things ag news and ag information. And we'll chat again next week. Cheers, everybody.